Back at home, feeling misunderstood. In between these ears, ain't nothing good.
All right, and we are here. We're back. We're talking UFC 261, and we have a special guest. We're also on Zoom now. Niko and I recorded the first part of our episode Monday night. Now we're back with Rev, our good friend, blogger for the Unhinged Sports Network, and I call him the MMA medicine man. To give a little love back to it. He can't have the Nigerian Nightmare nickname because that's Christian Okoye. Sorry, Niko. Kansas City Chiefs reference, I know. But I can call him the MMA medicine man. So, Rev, thanks for coming back and talking about this card because it's one of your fellow, your proud Nigerian heritage, your first generation, and Usman is headlining the card with 3 title fights. So we're going to talk title fights. But Rev, thanks for coming back and joining us for this.
Thanks for having me. Been there in person, but now I'm here virtually. Either way, I'll give the dosage. As you said, medicine man. I don't know how much I love the nickname, but maybe it'll settle on to me as time goes by, but I'll give a little dosage.
If you know Rev, you know his real nickname, and it's the problem. He's the problem. Rev, the problem. Koka. But let's go ahead and we'll do all of our picks like normal. We're just like I said, just the title fights, and we'll talk about the odds on the fight as well. And then we're starting with women's flyweight, and it is the Bullet Valentina Shevchenko, and she's taking on the Brazilian Pitbull, moving up in weight from strawweight in Jessica Andrade. I'm just going to call her the Pitbull because that's what she looks like on the UFC website. Um, Shevchenko, the champion, obviously favored minus 420, a 23-0 record, and Andrade is a plus 330 underdog. So, Rev, we'll go to you first since you are the guest. What are you seeing in this fight as to which way you think it's going to go?
Um, Something that I think will make this matchup more challenging for Shevchenko compared to the other matchup she's had defending her belt at flyweight is just the lack of a strong physical advantage she has over Andrade. Whereas you look at the other matchups for the most part, she can kind of just sit out at range, fight at a calm, relaxing pace. Then the moment the opponent gets close, she just grabs a body lock and just kind of just ragdolls her opponents, just enjoys that physical advantage. But someone like Andrade, where that strength translated at 135 for the most part, it translated well at 115. And we saw Andrade's debut against Chikagian with a TKO with a body punch that power is going to translate there too. So something that's going to make this interesting is just the fact that Andrade could go power for power with Shevchenko and that she's a physical freak in her own. So it's going to be a lot more even of a matchup than what Valentina's used to.
Yeah, and I think one thing to point out here is that the physical size difference is there. Shevchenko's 5'5", Andrade is 5'1", and I'm gonna look here at the reach. Andrade has a 4.5 inch reach disadvantage. But Niko, what are you thinking for this flyweight fight? And do you like the line here plus 330 with Andrade kind of carrying that big puncher's power?
I mean, look, Andrade, she's been around the UFC for a while. I feel like she's a fighter that's always testy and that is never gonna go down with that fight. But Shevchenko, man, she is one of the better fighters we've ever seen. I mean, look, her domination, it's goes without saying. She's won. I believe I count how many it is. Her last loss was against Amanda Nunes. Her last two, excuse me. She hasn't lost since 2010 against Liz Carmucci, um, and outside of someone other than Amanda Nunes. That's domination. Those wins include against Joanna Jacek, the wins against Jennifer Maya, the Holly Holmes. Um, she has gone Julia Pena. I mean, look, she has gone through whoever she has wanted to outside of the greatest women's UFC fighter, maybe even close. You can argue about her Amanda Nunes being one of the greatest MMA fighter of all time, and it's very very tough to bet against Shevchenko just because of her domination. But Andrade, her Brazilian background, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, I feel like she may have the strength to possibly power her way onto the ground. But when it comes to Valentina Shevchenko, her kickboxing is just world class. She is going to come out striking. She's going to come out swinging, and she's not going to give Andrade her veteran prowess is going to make sure that Andrade doesn't get into her game plan. And that's what Andrade has to do. Because look, getting your winning title fights as an underdog, especially this big, when it's minus 220, you said, Jimmy, or something
420.
along 420. Oh my God, minus 420 for Chico. I mean, those are
Oh,
high.
too wide. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little too wide. It's a little disrespectful, Andrade, but I think that's just more credit to Valentino. But I'm leaning towards Shevchenko just because the domination. But I think this is going to be a fight that is not going to be one of the quicker ones because I mean most of Shevchenko's wins, 3 out of the last 5 have been unanimous decisions. 2 of those were KOs against I and Chukagin. So I think this may be another unanimous decision where she tries to weigh her down a lot more.
Yeah, one thing I will point, like the main thing that I wanted to bring up with the reach is Valentina Shevchenko's kickboxing background. She has over 100 plus pro kickboxing fights, and she's trained it all over the world. She's really, I mean, if it wasn't for Amanda Nunes, she would probably be a good pick to be the next face of women's MMA. She speaks a bunch of different languages, and she looks, she's somebody that you would be able to put up on a billboard and say this is what the product is. She translates well to an audience. That kickboxing reach and length and understanding of timing. Andrade is a striker, but she's much more of a brawler, boxer type striker than really a disciplined kickboxing fighter. So I lean a little bit more towards Shevchenko. I think that Andrade has a good chance of landing something big at some point in a 5-round fight. Well, one other thing that I think is fair to say, the 2 most exciting title fights on this card of the 3 are probably going to be the women's fights. So Shevchenko Andrade is going to be a barn burner in the fight we're going to talk about next. But Niko went Shevchenko. I think I'm going Shevchenko. Rev, who are you picking in the fight?
I'm also going with Shevchenko here. Ultimately, I just think that she's a little bit more technical, whereas Andrade is powerful, but sometimes she'll chase after opponents and kind of aggressively look to close the distance and look for shots in the pocket or to get the clinch and slam her opponents. But when that happens, she's usually getting clipped off the back foot. And that's something Shevchenko does really well. She'll keep her distance. She'll pick you apart on the way in. And for the people who are looking at prop bets, perhaps the Shevchenko knockout might be something you should be looking for because with Andrade's aggression, she might just walk into a head kick. So that's always there. But I'm going with Shevchenko.
Yeah, for that prop bet as well, since 3 of her last 5 victories for Shevchenko have been decisions, those prop bets for the finishes are going to be bigger rewards, probably bigger odds. I'm not looking at FanDuel right now to actually say that for certain, but it would be something interesting to look at. So clean sweep for the bullet, Polish power. Here we go. And now we're moving on to the women's strawweight fight. And this one, Niko and I said it in the part of the episode that you guys have heard already. This is probably going to be fight of the night. The last time Weili Zhang was in the octagon, which seems like forever ago, is actually before the pandemic started in America. It was already going on in China. She had a pretty wild training camp to get to that fight, but her fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, everybody remembers the hematoma that was on top of Joanna's head, looked like an alien had embedded herself into her brain. But it's the first time we get to see the whirling dervish Weili back defending her title against Thug Rose Namajunas. That's all you really have to say. So big names coming into this fight, especially for this strawweight division that people were uncertain where it was going to go after Joanna dropped the title. So Niko, I'll go to you first. What are you seeing in this fight between Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas?
I mean, look, that's one of my favorite fights I've ever seen out of MMA. I mean, what Zhang and Joanna was able to do is just incredible. And I think we have part 2 right here. I think between Zhang, Rose, and Joanna, I think all 3 are very, very similar in their levels, like in how good they are. There's not necessarily one that I mean, Joanna was that for a long time, but now I think all 3 can kind of just go back and forth with one another. When it comes to the styles of this fight, Zhang Weili is gonna stand up and box the hell out of it. She's gonna come out swinging just like she did against Joanna and try to set the tone there. When it comes to Rose, she may try to do a little more jujitsu, may try to come up a little bit, may try to wrestle a bit more, but I expect her to stand in there too. I expect her to come out swinging as well. Both women are fighters that have been in moments where they've been knocked down or they've been either maybe losing a round, maybe losing early round, but they still can fight their way back. This is not a fight that maybe, I mean, now that I'm saying this is probably going to be wrong, but I mean, this is not a fight I don't see first round, second round. I see maybe a girl or one of these women getting a KO or TKO in the fourth or fifth, or I see unanimous or not unanimous, or you see it go to the cards because one of these, neither one of these women are going to be able to get put away like that. It's not like they're going to stand in there and be like, I'm going to give up. Both women either one's going to tap out to some submission, probably be Rose if that happens, or it's going to go the distance or near the distance because both these women, like I said, they have some of the best chins in the women's division, and they're going to come out and make sure that they put on a show.
Yeah, Weili Zhang is just a physical specimen too, and she is a striker by discipline, but she's pretty much perfected sprawl and brawl. She is nearly impossible to take down, so that's going to pose problems because Namajunas, she's good with jiu-jitsu, but it's much more of a defensive jiu-jitsu. It's not a take you down and then put the strangleholds on you. So that's where I see that coming. And she's married to Pat Barry, who's a former UFC heavyweight, big, longtime kickboxer. So she knows how to throw her hands and feet as well. It's not like she doesn't know how to stand up and fight. But Rev, what are the big things that stand out to you in this matchup?
Um, like Niko said earlier, there's no way this fight isn't going to be exciting when you consider this is the best women's division in the UFC at 115, and this is a perfect example of that. You have a matchup between two worthy championship level fighters where every area of their game they have something. With Rose on the ground, she has a tricky submission game, and on the feet, she's gone better with her footwork. She can fight off the back foot, she can apply the pressure, and she's become a harder puncher in her own part, and she can also mix it up with the head kicks. As for Weili, she's become a very comfortable striker. She's become very comfortable with exchanging in the pocket with her hands. And even on the ground, she's shown bits and flashes. She's shown some ground and pound. She has a submission finish, I believe, over Jessica Aguilar, who's a credential grappler in her own. So we got a matchup between two very well-rounded mixed martial artists who fight at a very high pace. I believe both fighters land at least over 4 significant strikes a minute, so they keep a high pace. They're very well rounded, and there's no way this fight's going to disappoint. So it's just going to be interesting to see how everything plays out in this matchup. Who has the advantages in the grappling and the stand up and then all of those things.
Yeah, this is fireworks for sure. Looking at the line here from, I believe it's William Hill Sportsbook that ESPN gets their betting lines from. Plus 160 for Rose as the underdog. Weili minus 190 coming off that year plus layoff. Namajunas, she obviously did what people thought was impossible and beat Joanna for the title, and nobody thought that was going to happen. But then lost to Andrade. She came back and avenged that loss. I really think that we're in the Weili era, so it's difficult for me to go against picking her for this fight. And at minus 190, I think we talk about Andrade getting disrespected in the last fight. This is just a lot of respect shown for Namajunas. This could easily be a bigger line. I think physicality and where these two fighters are in their career, for that reason, I'm going to say that Weili is going to defend her title, and we're going to see another classic in this strawweight division, but I do see Weili walking away with it. I don't see split decision. I see more of like a late fifth round stoppage, just because it's similar to the Gaethje Ferguson fight where the referee's just like, I'm tired of seeing you get punched in your face. I'm sorry. Let's go home and let's get you some ice bags and everybody goes home happy. So I'm going with Weili. Niko, who are you picking in this fight?
Not so fast, Jimmy. I don't think Rose is going to be a person that, I mean, maybe she's a person that's just beaten up so bad, but like she's not going to go down, I think, that easily. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to go with Rose. I think Zhang, like I said, I think all three of these women, I mean, both these women in this fight, and then I throw Joanna in this conversation too. I think all three of these women you can have all three fight each other 10 times and you're going to have a winner different times. Like it's not necessarily Zhang is very, very powerful. I think I don't see her as dominant as necessarily everyone else is. Because that Joanna fight, she was fighting very well. She had that win in the bag, but Joanna was not going away. And I think if she leaves the door open, I think Rose might try to capitalize on that. So I'm going to give Rose the slight nod here.
All right, Rev, you got to break the tie. Who are you picking in the fight?
Well, it's kind of a coin flip fight, whereas the person I'm rooting for is not actually the person who I'm going to pick to win. So after the comments that Rose kind of made about Wei Li with the better dead than red, comments about how Wei Li represents communism and all this and that, I'm rooting for Wei Li to win this fight. But this is one of those coin flip fights where I can see Rose pulling it off, and I think I'm going to pick Rose because she has a tendency to start off fights really fast. In rounds 1 and 2, she comes in on fire. She does a good job maintaining distance, and in the Jessica Andrade fights, the last two fights she had against Jessica Andrade, she did a good job fighting off the back foot and catching Andrade on the way in. And I think she could do that to Wei Li. The issue with Rose is that sometimes as fights goes on and she's in against elite competition, she'll tend to slow down a little bit if you can put the pressure on her in rounds 3 and 4 and things like that. And I can see this being a decision where Rose squeaks it out, where it's like a split decision where Rose starts off winning the first half of the fight, but Wei Li comes on strong and starts to pressure her a little bit and wins the second half of the fight. But I think Rose kind of wins that type of split decision where she does enough in the first half of the fight to win.
All right, I guess I'll be the odd man out on that one. I don't mind being the only one picking Wei Li Zhang because it's not like I'm picking the Browns to beat the Steelers every single time. Yeah, I'm throwing the Steelers out there, Rev. I know you like that kind of stuff. But now the big question, guys. Jorge Masvidal, is he bringing the BMF title to the Octagon this weekend?
I don't think so. I don't know about that.
Okay, well, it was a thought. It could be he could look to be a champ, BMF champ, I guess. But we have a
I mean, if
rematch at
if
170.
he wins, maybe he has a double champ. He has both around him. That could be a
We'll see.
possibility.
Whatever that's worth.
Maybe The Rock will be able to present him this title belt because we're gonna have fans back in Jacksonville for this event. But let's get serious. Even though I think this is probably the least entertaining and most one-sided of these 3 title fights. Kamaru Usman, 18-1-0, pretty much the dominant welterweight champion of this era. We've seen the Matt Hugheses, the GSPs. You can say Tyron a little bit, but Kamaru has really taken that belt and ran with it. And he is now going up against the guy who used to fight in Kimbo's backyard circuit, Jorge Masvidal. Mr. Two-Piece in a Soda knocked out Ben Askren. That's still the fastest UFC KO in history, right? I think it beat McGregor by like a second.
Yeah, beat McGregor. I think the Masvidal one was like 9 seconds, and Connor was like 11.
I think knocking out Ben Askren is beginning to lose its value as the days go on.
That's also true.
I was gonna say it. I mean, Askren lasted just a little bit longer against Jake Paul, so and he's improving on the feet. That's what we'll say. But yeah, this fight, I already gave my thoughts on it, and it's pretty easy. I mean, to see who I'm gonna pick in this one. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I'm picking Kamaru to defend this title. It's minus 420 plus 330 odds again, and I think this one might be legit. This is one of the more underdeserved title fights that I can remember being just given to somebody based on the name. You can say that there's not really anybody else that could. I mean, Leon Edwards is kind of sitting there like, hey, what's going on? Why can't I get a title fight? So I get why they did it, but I think this is going to be a beatdown. I see Kamaru dominating and getting a stoppage similar to the Colby Covington fight. But I'll let you guys go now. And Rev, I'll let you go first. What do you see happening, and who are you picking in this one?
Yeah, so before he went on air, I kind of said this is the rematch nobody asked for, and I just it's hard to see Masvidal being very competitive against a guy in Kamaru Usman who we know he's a very solid grappler, kind of has a concept where he puts you up against the fence, and it's kind of a rinse repeat where he takes you down, holds you up against the fence, gets you in the wrist right positions. If you get up, He'll hold you in a clinch, dirty box until he gets a chance to take you down. And if not, he can just hold you up against the fence and just kind of just hit you with foot stomps and shoulder strikes off fight like how he did in the first fight against Masvidal. And I just kind of feel like he has too many ways to just kind of just manhandle him there in the grappling department. His striking is also getting better. He looked comfortable after going through a scary first round against Gilbert Burns. He got a little bit more settled in, found his jab, and just kind of dictated control. And even I think that's something that could work well against Masvidal if he doesn't just zero in on striking. I think he's fighting more discipline. He's working behind the jab, and if he fights in spurts on the feet and then mixes it in with the takedowns and clinch control, there should be no reason why Usman doesn't get at least a 50-45 and maybe even 44 or 43 on some scorecards.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, Niko. I'll let you, because I know you're high on Masvidal. You like the BMF champ. So what are you seeing in this fight?
so okay, yes, this is the rematch no one asked for, but this fight, like, look, their first time they fought, they saved the first UFC the biggest first UFC pay-per-view card back because it was the first fight on Fight Island back in the summer of last year, and at the time Gilbert Burns and Usman were the main event, and Burns contracted COVID, and we had a situation where Masvidal had to take 11 days notice. And yes, for any fighter, it does not matter who you are, 11 days notice for a fight to cut that much. And then you have to quarantine for at least more than half of those days, then go travel to a different country that you wasn't already planned for. Look, I'm not making excuses, but Usman dominated the first matchup, but Usman knew what he had to do because he knew Masvidal wasn't going to last outside of one round. He knew that if I backed him up against the wall, like up against the fence for all 5 rounds, that I will easily win a unanimous decision. And to me, that's weak. Honestly, it was a weak move. He has fought a lot better. The Gilbert Burns fight was absolutely amazing what he did to him, but that was a weak move. He was kind of dodging Usman a little bit, in my opinion. He knew how to win the fight, and he knew exactly what he needed to do the first time. This second time, I need Usman to not do that again. Usman, if Usman does what he did against Gilbert Burns to Masvidal, I'll be like, you know what? I could throw his hat into the ring of some of the greatest welterweights of all time. If he says, Masvidal, I'm just going to back you up against the fence and then control you the whole for 25 minutes, then he's not it to me. He's just not. Because Masvidal is going to try to stay out of the box. He's going to be more prepared because he's had a full camp. He's going to be more aware of the situation. I am almost positive that he has worked on his takedown defense at least every other training session. I hope, because that's exactly what he's going to have to be doing all fight. But I hope that this is a good fight. Like I said, I'm going to be rooting for Masvidal because I think he's a very entertaining fighter, and I love his charisma and what he can do. Do I think he's going to win? No, because I think Usman will do the exact same thing. I think Usman's just going to control him, and I think that's just going to be the end of it. I don't want it to go 5 rounds, but I feel like it's going to. I hope that Usman comes out and just fucking swings and does what he did against Burns, where he was actually rocked in the first round, and then the second round he's like, "Fuck you, I'm actually still the champ," and then he came out and dominated his presence. I'd hope we see a similar situation to the Gilbert Burns fight here. I hope that maybe Masvidal comes out, punks him a few times. Usman wakes up, be like, "Fuck, this guy actually had a full camp," and then he locks in, takes it seriously, and we see the Nigerian nightmare that we know and love from Usman. So I am going to be rooting for Masvidal because I want a good fight and I like the upsets. I'm gonna root for Masvidal, but Usman's gonna win.
Yeah, and I'd settle for a Colby Covington fight performance from Masvidal as well, because that fight was really entertaining when he stopped him in the 5th round, broke his jaw early on in that fight too. It's going to be a fun card. It's 3 title fights. It's always fun, and the pay-per-views. You can say what you want about some of the fight night cards. I think they've been still pretty entertaining. The pay-per-views have been nothing but fireworks the past three times. I think the
Past
two,
260, you mean, Jimmy? I'm going back to UFC 1. They've all been entertaining.
I said past
3.
they're
I
all
know.
entertaining.
They're all entertaining.
They are all entertaining. But Rev, thank you for coming back on, and go ahead, tell the people where they can find you, because you are blogging for the Unhinged website, but you're also a pretty fun follow, especially if you're an MMA fan on Twitter, and you've been in a couple beefs with some UFC heavyweights.
You can kind of find my random tidbits of thoughts, whether it's Instagram or Twitter at Rev Koka, REVKOKA. Rev Koka. You can find me there. IG, Twitter, wherever.
Be sure to follow him, and be sure to check out the blogs being written at unhingedsn.com by all three of us. Niko's been writing a lot of NBA blogs, and if you're a big Denver sports fan, you're going to be enjoying the one that he's putting out tomorrow as you're listening to this, because he's got something in mind for the Jokic for MVP
I got
campaign.
a lot of things that I got to get off my mind. I'll just put it that way.
You got me defending him on Twitter to other accounts too, so it's not like nobody's drinking the Kool-Aid. Follow the podcast on Twitter at FEOTB Pod. You can listen to us premiere on the Unhinged Sports Network every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, and we're available on demand right afterwards. This is also a YouTube clip on our channel. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching there, and catch all the other clips that we're putting out, because we put out 2 clips a week, and then we're starting to put out some highlight videos of the stuff we're actually going out and doing. We have our golfing outing highlights up there, and our team far end men's rec league highlights, where Niko's got a little bit of a splash to his 3-point shot sometimes. Jeremy also had some good.
I'll shoot.
I even make the video. You got to watch all the way till the end. But that's pretty much everything. Follow our Unhinged Sports Network at Network Unhinged on Twitter, unhingedsn on Instagram, and the link to listen live 24/7, unhingedsn.airtime.pro. But for that, this has been Far End of the Bench, episode 37. Thank you, Rev, for joining us again. And for myself and Niko, we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.